Welcome to today's guided walk. This guided walk will take place around a property in a suburban neighborhood. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little background on this property. This property is on a half-acre lot with a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house in the center and a pool resting behind it. The owners of this house do all the landscaping themselves to help maintain the great diversity and beauty of the land. The owners have owned this house since it was built just under 20 years ago, and while certain parts may show age, much of the landscaping and exterior have been very well kept to promote a wonderful oasis in a suburban neighborhood in a busy town. This property is a great example of why planting non-native and very diverse trees in a suburban yard can be a great idea. On this walk, we will directly observe 8 different types of trees while walking past and admiring many others. I hope that this walk helps you get inspiration for your own yard and landscaping areas, and you come to appreciate what great plant diversity can really do to make a yard and home beautiful and full of wonderful plant life. Let's get started and head on over to our first tree. This is our first tree. This is an eastern redbud, or a Fabaceae cercis canadensis in Latin. Eastern redbuds are very common ornamental trees that naturally grow all across much of the eastern half of North America. With enough sunlight, they'll grow in just about any type of soil, including acidic, alkaline, loamy, clay, well-drained, and moist soils. In order to grow well, they much prefer full sunlight, but can do well in partial shade. They have very small pink to red flowers that interestingly can grow directly out of the bark on the trunk. The roots of this tree can also be used to make a very nice red dye. The eastern redbud is also known as the Judas tree. The story of Judas says that Judas hung himself on a tree in the Fabaceae family with white flowers. As a sign of shame and blood from this violent act, the flowers in the tree turned pink to red, creating the redbud tree. Next, we will turn around and head on behind us and continue on to an early Richmond cherry tree, a tree that loves the sun and has much different soil preferences than our eastern redbud. This is an early Richmond cherry tree, or Rosaceae prunus cerasus. This type of cherry tree has small, delicate white flowers and produces cherry fruits. This type of cherry produces sour cherries, which are commonly used in baked goods like pies and to make preserves and jams. These cherries are unlike those commonly purchased in grocery stores, which are sweet cherries and usually have a deep burgundy red color. These ones come in a very lightish pink color. These trees love full sunlight with little to no shade and grow very well in well-drained, loamy soils. Later on, we will see one that was grown in partial shade the last few years, and you can certainly tell a difference. This tree also comes in 2 varieties. This one here is a dwarf tree that must be staked to bear the weight of its own fruit. You can also find many full-size varieties of this tree in nurseries along with the dwarf ones. We will now continue on and move on to a tree that just about everybody recognizes, the flowering dogwood. This is a flowering dogwood, or Cornaceae cornus florida. This tree is a very common tree, as it is the state tree and state flower of Virginia, along with many other states. It has the largest flowers of all dogwoods, with these very gorgeous white and pink petals. These large petals are actually not petals at all. Rather, they are modified leaves called bracts, with the centerpiece really being the flower. These hardy little trees love lots of sunlight, but can do well in partial shade also. They can grow in most soils, much like the redbud, doing well in loamy, rich, moist, well-drained, or sandy soils. Their soil preferences, or lack thereof, and beautiful leaves make them wonderful ornamental trees found in many landscapes and yards. We will now move on to another tree that loves sunlight even more than our dogwood. This is a red maple, or Aceraceae acer rubrum. These trees are extremely common up and down large portions of eastern North America. This tree has an impressive range, found from anywhere from the northern forests of Newfoundland and as far south as Florida. The average height of a red maple is about 30 to 40 feet, but the tallest one, located in Great Smoky Mountains, Tennessee, is over 140 feet tall. These trees much prefer full sunlight, which can make them great trees to line spacious neighborhood streets. If you look past this tree to the street behind this property, you will see a few others lining the road. Red maples, unlike our early Richmond cherry tree, much prefer wet soils, but can be drought tolerant in the right conditions. A beloved part of this tree is the vibrant yellow and red colors that they turn in the fall. Next, we will make our way to another tree known and planted for its vibrant fall colors. This is a winged spindle tree, or Celestraceae euonymus elatus. This bush has very small, insignificant green flowers in the spring, but turns a vibrant, fiery red color in the fall. Due to this almost abrasive coloring, it was nicknamed the burning bush. This bush loves mostly sun with partial shade and is very hardy. It can withstand a very harsh pruning, as it is an invasive bush across much of the United States, including Virginia. While it was originally hailing from Japan and other parts of Eastern Asia, it was brought to the U.S. in the mid to late 1800s to be used in landscaping. However, over many years, it started invading the forests up and down the eastern United States, and due to its wide, dense canopy and fast-growing nature, it outcompetes other plants and shrubs. Despite this issue, it is still commonly seen as an ornamental in many areas in the states that the sale and cultivation of them has not been banned, such as Massachusetts. Next, we will carry on to another tree of Japanese origin, the Kwanzan cherry tree. This is a Kwanzan cherry tree, or Rosaceae prunus cerulata. This beast of a yard tree is usually a mid-sized tree, but when grown in full sunlight, like this one was, it often grows very wide and very tall. This tree has pretty pale pink fluffy flowers and is often found among the famous cherry trees in Washington, D.C. that were donated by Japan. This tree prefers moist areas but can grow in loamy, sandy, alkaline, acidic, or clay soils as well. It is also a deer-resistant tree, so young trees are often successful in very deer-infested areas. This type of cherry tree may not produce fruits, but it makes up for that with its very beautiful coloring and very vibrant flowers. The next tree that we will move on to is another East Asian tree, the Chinese elm. This is a Chinese elm, or Ulmaceae ulmus parvifolia. These trees have small, inconspicuous flowers that bloom in late fall. They are exceedingly hardy trees that can grow in any moderate quality soil as long as it is well drained. Chinese elms are also called lacebark elms due to their unique bark patterning. They are originally native to Japan, China, and Taiwan. These elm trees replaced the iconic American elm tree that used to line streets, creating the iconic Elm Street. When the numbers of American elm trees dwindled due to Dutch elm disease, Chinese elms, which are immune to the disease, were planted in their place. Chinese elms are now very commonly lining residential streets with their very nice form, making good framing for neighborhoods. The last tree on our tour today is another tree with very eye-catching bark patterns, the river birch. Let's head on over there. This is a river birch, or Betulaceae betula nigra. This tree, as you can see, has very peeling bark and very nice drooping form, making them wonderful eye-catching ornamentals for neighborhood settings. They have catkins instead of flowers, these drooping bundles of pollen, often found in groups of 1 or 2 on this type of birch. While this tree can get its name from growing along rivers and ponds, it can also grow very well in more well-drained soils depending on the average rainfall in the area. In addition to their unique bark, these trees also often have 2 or 3 trunks, a very defining feature in this species of birch. This is our other early Richmond cherry tree. While it was originally growing in a lot of sun, when the river birch got so big and started shading the cherry tree, it started to not do so well. You can see a very stark difference between this early Richmond cherry tree and the one we saw on our tour. The other one is clearly a lot healthier from getting much more sun. This concludes our tour of the ornamental trees on the property. I hope this tour has taught you about the great diversity of plants and trees that you can plant in one small area. As this property has shown, it is possible to leave behind planting just a few native vegetation types in your yard or on your property, and you can embrace many different types of trees and varietals and shrubs to create wonderful landscape looks. Please feel free to wander around the property and admire the other trees. Try and spot some of the trees we talked about today, planted around in other places.